So, is there any way, and I don't know how this is going to work out, is there any way we can get Jaylen Brown? Can I have Jaylen Brown on this Hawks team? Obviously he's an Atlanta kid, right? Now, there's a lot of speculation about whether or not the Boston Celtics are going to re-sign him. Now, he is up for not just the deal, Supermax. He's a second team All NBA player this past season, right? So he's set for a Supermax deal, which would be like $290 million from the Celtics. That is massive, massive money. But obviously, he's a very, very good two-way player. Obviously, he's one of the core pieces. But the Celtics are going to have to decide about whether or not they want to give him that kind of money. Now, the NBA has, with their new collective bargaining agreement, they've changed up some things in the CBA. So, number one is, the fact that you can have more than two Supermax players on one team now. So that's one of the changes that, again, you don't have to worry about limiting the amount of Supermax players that you have. So if he did find a way to come here, he's going to be a Supermax player. But, Trae Young is also a Supermax player. So you don't have to worry about the fact that, okay, we're at our limit with two Supermax players. Now, look, this is real pie in the sky when we come to all of this, right? Tony Ressler is probably not going to get neck deep into giving Jaylen Brown a $290 million extension as a Supermax player with a roster that is already cluttered and clouded and things like that. It would probably require, if we're going to trade, and by the way, Jaylen Brown for this upcoming season is still a $31.8 million cap hit. So he's a big cap hit coming up. I mean, he's obviously got some money tied up into him. So as we're trying to probably figure out a way to reduce payroll and things like that, which, again, that's not necessarily a winning formula, but certainly Jaylen Brown would be a guy that we would love to go into the luxury tax for, right? If our roster stands pat as is, we're going in the luxury tax. And it probably requires, I don't even know what the deal would be. In all honesty, I mean, it may involve DeAndre Hunter and DeJounte Murray. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what a potential deal like that would be. Certainly DeAndre Hunter would be a guy that would probably be in the mix, but I don't know if there's any way that we can get him to come back home. This is real pie in the sky. I'm not very confident in the idea that we're going to pursue Jaylen Brown, but there is a lot of questions and there are a lot of things that are up in the air whether or not he's going to re-sign with the Boston Celtics. It doesn't sound like either side has kind of pinned this down or is fully committed to the idea of Jaylen Brown being a Boston Celtic moving forward. Now, look, again, in these kinds of discussions in the NBA, most all of the time, the guy ends up with his team if they want to pay. The only time that guys don't sign their extensions and things like that and extend with their same team, right? We've seen this with Bradley Beal and, everybody, is if the team just doesn't want him. If the team decides that, okay, we can live without Jaylen Brown. I don't see how the Celtics live without Jaylen Brown. I don't see without Tatum, and Brown and Smart and, keeping that young core together because they are one of the best teams in the NBA. And, they're down now 3-0 to the Miami Heat, but they're still one of the better teams in the NBA. They're still a title contender. You would figure that they would want to keep that group together. But certainly there has to be some way that if he isn't going to re-sign with Boston, that we could find ourselves in the mix with the Atlanta Hawks. Come back home, Jaylen. Come back home. I don't know if he's going to get to free agency. I would certainly think that Jaylen Brown will be a guy that will be a commodity and will be dealt. I don't think that the Celtics will risk the idea of him just walking away, with nothing for compensation. They will certainly trade him before it gets to that point. But it just doesn't seem like it's been set in stone that he's going to be back with the Boston Celtics. But he is owed a crap ton of money because, again, he is not just a, He's not just in line for a max extension. He's in line for a super max extension. And from the Boston Celtics perspective, you're looking at $290 million. And you know how much of that money is fully guaranteed? All of it. $290 million. So if the Celtics want to blow their cap out and, obviously get way into the luxury tax and things like that, then, maybe they'll do it. But if not, if the Celtics aren't willing to give him that kind of extension, give him that kind of number, is there any way that the Atlanta Hawks could be involved in something to bring him home? Is there any way that the Hawks could put together an attractive enough trade package to get him home? I don't know. I mean, I truly don't know. I don't think that the Hawks are going to dip their toe into those kinds of waters because, again, if you're not going to give him a supermax extension, then you're probably not going to be in the business of re-signing Jaylon Brown because he's in line for all of that. And look, I think that there's only 11 supermax players currently under contract in the NBA. I would guarantee you that he wants to be the 12th guy to be under contract. So it's pie in the sky. It's wishful thinking. It's dreams. But I look at this idea of Jaylon Brown maybe potentially becoming available. Maybe obviously he's a free agent coming into the summer of 2024. He's obviously an Atlanta kid. The Hawks could use an upgrade. And look, the Hawks could use an upgrade in any position on their basketball team. I would love for it to make sense. I don't know that the $290 million makes a whole lot of sense for the Atlanta Hawks as we're trying to figure out about whether or not we're going to even stay in the luxury tax. Because if we're not going to stay in the luxury tax, this roster is going to look a whole lot different because we're already $9 million in the luxury tax. Again, I've said the number one question I want to ask Tony Ressler is, are we going in the luxury tax this year? Not when it makes sense, not when it's right. This year. Are we going in the luxury tax this year? We'll see what happens, but certainly Jaylon Brown will be a hot commodity. Would love for him to see him come home and be back with the Atlanta Hawks. All right, well, thank you so much for making Hittin' Hard with John Chuckery your first listen. Make sure that you go in and leave us a comment on whatever platform that you are on to let us know that you're an everyday listener. We call them our everydayers. We thank you so much for being a part of our growing community, 13 months into this thing now. So we thank you so much for being a part of the show. Let us know that you're an everyday listener to the program. You can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. You can get the latest episodes of Hittin' Hard as soon as they become available. Check us out on the Sirius XM app as well. Then give me a follow on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. Back with you tomorrow. This has been Hittin' Hard with John Chuckery, Locked on Sports Atlanta.